you have to be secure in what you're doing and love the product. That number one. Number two, you really, and I think we spoke about this a couple of days ago, you really got to know the problem you're solving for that person when you have that person on the phone. And you have to be very specific on how you're going to solve that for them, i.e. the W-2 person that doesn't have time to go out and do this kind of activity, but they would like to park their money with you for a short period of time so that you can take it to the new level that they're not getting in the 401k.
Tim is one of the most authentic and genuine people I've ever met.
Sincerely believe he's coming from a position of giving, and that means a lot.
You're going to make huge progress.
Welcome everybody to today's Capital Raising Show. I'm your host, Tim Mai. We have an amazing guest on the line with us today, Michael Guthrie. He's only been in the syndication space for 14 months, but he has done amazing background. He's the co-owner and VP of sales of a multi-million-dollar automated teller machine distributorship, Automated ATM Solutions, Inc. He's a capital raiser, multifamily investor, and syndicator at Cypress Advantage Properties, LLC. Currently owning over 8,300 doors across multiple markets, providing a passive income stream, and has almost $300 million in asset under management. Together with his wife, Samantha Guthrie, they have raised over $62 million for syndication in the past 14 months across 12 separate syndications. They have 23 years of real estate experience, including property management of apartments and single-family homes. They are multifamily investors, multifamily syndicators, and they raise capital for syndications. Starting their company on a credit card and now running a multi-million-dollar operation. The story of Michael and Samantha Guthrie will inspire the entrepreneur in you. So with that, let's give Michael a big welcome, y'all. Hey! Awesome. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, Michael. So, I don't know how you realize, but we're all super pumped to be here. We always love to hear we always love to hear a newbie story, even though you're not, you're new to syndications, but you're definitely not new to business. So share with us a little bit of your background and also what got you into the syndication space.
So I grew up, I was in the military right after high school as an X-ray tech, left the Army and went into MRIs in the Bay Area of California. And that's where me and Samantha had met. And soon after that, the networks released their guidelines and allowed people to actually own individual ATM machines. So we started our first side hustle, putting out ATM machines. So we put out 4 over a weekend. We just went out at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and went to the nightclubs the big nightclubs in San Francisco and said, hey, we can bring you ATM machines. If you're interested, that way you don't have in and out privileges. People have access to cash. Let's start there. So that was our first entree into passive income. And we've since grown that over the last 27 years to almost 7,000 units across the United States. And it's just been Samantha and I, and now we have an assistant in the Philippines and one in Tennessee that actually operate that company. And for the most part, Samantha and I are absentee owners on that. And I've been focused on the multifamily that I learned about literally 3 years ago and started investing in it a couple years ago. As a passive. December of 2020 was my first passive investment as a limited partner. We put 50 grand into a unit and that one's already sold, doubled our money inside of 14 months on that. So it's been quick. July of 2021 was our first capital raise. Got invited through a mentorship program to GP on a team. Didn't realize what talents we had behind us, but literally got asked. I got nervous. I pulled out my cell phone and started texting my contacts. And all of a sudden I knew I had something worth doing. And people were like very receptive, looking for more certainty in their investments. And I think knowing what me and Samantha had done in business, with our friends and family and neighbors and whatnot, they trusted us in this space and trusted that we had done our homework before we all jumped in together. So that was literally how we got started. and it's just blown up ever since then. And I think what two hallmarks that have really worked for us is December of 2019, we joined, we went to our very first ever Tony Robbins event. We joined Platinum Partnership day number 2, and it really opened up our eyes to mentorships and masterminds, and got us less afraid of spending a good chunk of money to get proximity to people that had better and bigger ideas than we did. And so for me, one of the things that's really helped me grow in this space is mentorship and masterminds. And I really appreciate what you're doing here, Tim, is mentoring so many people and bringing on so much. I mean, I was on last week, the gentleman, he's raised over $200 million, and he's raising 100 million for a fund right now. I was just like blown away that I thought what I did was incredible. He's been at it 24 years, so don't get me wrong, but knowing that you can just go out there and raise $100 million in a matter of 30, 60, 90 days to go out and do 5 to 6 developments, insane. But it's because of what you're putting together here, Tim, that allows everybody to come in and listen, learn, take away some nuggets, implement that into our own programs that allow us to be who we are today.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of the things that my wife was asking me, like, what's one thing that I accomplished this year that I really like, and doing this show is definitely, on top of the list. And my goal in doing this show was just for myself especially, and for others that are tuning in, to know what's possible, to get to see and witness what's possible. It's one thing to hear about someone who raised 100 million or 62 millions in 14 months. It's a whole new level when you're on a Zoom call with them, right? And so that proximity you're talking about is so valuable. And so, yeah, definitely. Thank you for being on this call and being a participant with us for a number of weeks as well. So
Always.
So yeah, so you mentioned you started out with a $50,000 passive investment before you made it into the syndication side, the GP side. Share with us, what was your first raise like? Like, when you sent that text to that very first text to your friends and family and your contacts, what did that first text say?
So it was really funny because I'd gotten the phone call, and I walked in. So me and my wife work out of our home. So I walked out down the hall and over to her office, and I said, "Hey, honey, we're getting married." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "We're getting into a deal. We're going to be married for the next 5 years to these partners. What do you think?" And she goes, "What do you think you're going to bring as value?" And I go, "I'm going to raise that money." And she goes, "What makes you think you can do that?" And I go, "Give me about an hour. I'm going to figure it out." So I sat down, I wrote up a little script. I typed it into my text message. I said, "Dear whoever I sending it to, I have been investing in multifamily," because I started in December and we were into July. I've been investing in multifamily myself, and this is what I've seen happening so far. And I've been asked to raise money on an opportunity. Would you like to come alongside me? If the answer is yes, just reply yes with your email. If the answer is no, just reply no, I won't add you to my database. And if you want to have a call, reply on the text with call. And I got almost unexpectedly all yeses with emails. Not one person really wanted to call, and I think only one person said no, not on this one. Let me see how it goes for you going down the road. So I got to the letter G in my database, and I figured out at $50,000 a person, I had more commitments than I would need.
Wow.
But then we get down the road. So we're sending out emails we got it under contract. We got the purchase and sale agreement. We're going to have a webinar. Here's a soft commit form. Let me know how much you want to put in. Then we go live on the webinar. And here's one thing you want to really know. You want to know who your partners are and what their skill sets are, because one of my partners was supposed to have the portal ready night of the webinar. We go live on Wednesday or Tuesday on a webinar, figuring that way we get the rest of the week to raise money. And Tuesday, when the webinar is over, portal's not ready.
Oh, man.
Thursday comes. Thursday about 4 p.m. Pacific time. I'm on the West Coast. Pacific time, my partners say, portal's ready. I start immediately texting the links and emailing the links out to all my investors that had soft committed and said, we're ready to go. Please fill out your forms. By midday on Friday, one of my partners, and I love her. She's been great. She says, we're not going to get there. It's just not happening fast enough. I think I might have to call another GP. And I go, hang on. We've been live less than 24 hours. Give me 5 business days to get this done. By noon on Sunday, I had $5.5 million worth of signed PPMs in the portal and done. And I was like, any questions? I called my partners and said, hey, any questions? And she had raised $1 million. So that was our $6.5 million raise, and it was done. Now all we have to do is collect the money. And by Tuesday, all my investors, because they knew that it went so fast, because we closed off the portal and people were calling, I can't get in, I can't get in. Well, portal's closed. People that had their money in the bank on Tuesday. They went to the banks literally on Monday and wired money. And so all my cash was in the bank in no time at all. And I was like, holy cow, this is just incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Wow, that's impressive. You obviously have an amazing contact list for sure. I've never heard anyone doing it at that speed, and not only you get the commitment, but people actually feel signing the PPM and wiring the money in just a few short days is like super impressive. So when you went down from that A to G, did you exclude anybody, or like did you filter out like, oh, that's a family member, they might not invest, so I'm not gonna text them, or oh, that's a friend, they might not invest? Or did you just send the same message to everyone regardless who they are?
I sent the same message to everyone, because I've learned being in the business, the people business, you never ever want to say no for somebody, because you don't know who they may know or who they may want to share with you down the road. So for me, I didn't want to say, I mean, I have family members they're like, please don't text me anymore. and none of them are invested in any of my deals, and they're all now wishing they did, but that's okay. I'm totally fine with it. But you have to allow everybody to say no for themselves. It's like, oh, Tim, I know you're not going to be in New York, but if you want to come to this party, this is where I'll be. Who knows, maybe you're going to be in New York for New Year's, and why would I say no for you? So I try not to say no to anybody. So I'm the worst. I will jump on Zoom calls with anybody about almost anything. And I don't say no, because you never know who's on the other end. And if you give them the attention they deserve, you may actually get a carrot in return. And so you just don't know who you're always talking to. So it's always important to make sure you're treating everybody with respect. And number one, as a capital raiser, and I've learned this through my ATM business and friends and family, you're always being interviewed and being watched. So if somebody goes, well, he's always the last guy to leave the bar, or he's out running around and his wife's out of town, and you never want anybody thinking anything other than positive thoughts about you. So especially as a capital raiser, and when you're trying to co-GP/capital raiser, by the way,
right,
raise money from people, you want to make sure they are going to know, they want to know you, and then they want to like you, and everything else you do when they're watching or when they're not watching is why they're going to trust you. So it's very important to always know you're on display, and you always better bring your best every day.
I love that. And yeah. And the fact that you don't pre-screen also helps you get over that analysis paralysis, right? It's like you're in action, you're just gonna send, and let it land where it lands. So that's really awesome. Yeah. And then so prior to you sending that text, did you send any kind of emails about you starting to invest in multifamily at all? And then now, what are you doing now around letting the rest of your A to, whatever H to Z now know that you're in the business?
okay, I did not start sending anybody anything until I started texting when I was actually
Gotcha.
on a deal. I really didn't want to warm up the audience before I had something to give them.
Ah,
So for me, out of the gate, that was important, because I didn't want to promise something I couldn't deliver. And
mhm.
now that we've been delivering on what we say, it's actually easier to open up to everybody. And to the rest of the group of my my database, I started sending out nurturing things like, if you ever thought about investing in multifamily, here's what you want to watch for. This is what you want to look for. And I was just on the phone with a gentleman literally earlier today, and he was trying to tell me it's always about the deal. I've found if you listen to the gentleman that spoke last week, and if anybody wants to go back and watch that, you should. He will tell you on his $100 million raise, he doesn't have a deal yet. And it's not always about the deal. It's more about them trusting you as a person and knowing you're going to be a good fiduciary and steward of their hard-earned money. And you're going to be watching out for it.
Right. That's awesome. Have you had any deal that, I mean, you're such an exception. Have you had any deal that you had challenges raising money for?
I'm glad you asked. And Trevor was actually, we were on a webinar literally in January. I was sitting in a hotel in San Diego, and Trevor was a shark on the panel, and raising. And I'm going to say the deal is going amazing. We've been making distributions. We have a 8% distribution going out in January on that deal in Duncanville, and it was the hardest raise ever. And here's why I believe why. And I'd like to know if anybody else has had this experience, if they want to throw it in the chat. But we were raising in Q1 of the year, and it was only a $8 million raise. And I think I pulled in six and change on that one. But it took me almost 6 weeks to get that much money in. And that's been the longest. I mean, I did a deal in November and one in December, where before the webinar was over between me and this other couple, we had raised over 11.5 million on one and 13 million on another. That was committed by PPMs before the webinar was over.
Wow.
So raising in Q1 has been the toughest for me. And I sort of am using Q1 this year to do a revamp of my nurturing campaigns and my outreach to new accredited and non-accredited investors, so we can do some get to know yous. So then when we hit the ground running, Q2, that's my plan. I mean, I've already been offered a couple deals for Q1, but my plan is to not do a deal in Q1, because I believe everybody's worried about where the interest rates are going a little bit. And they weren't last year, but they will be this year. And they're worried about how much they're going to end up paying on their tax return. So if you start nurturing now and getting people ready for something coming later in the year, I think we're all going to be in a better position. But that's just me and my own thought process, because I did a Q1 raise last year in my first year of actually raising, and it was the hardest one out of everyone.
Interesting. I've never even, thought it'd be, it'll be that challenging, that would have you kind of just using it as a foundational building time to plan for Q2. That's an interesting perspective. So what are your, share with us your, besides your contact list, what are your top 2 or 3 ways that you are attracting new investors, that you're raising money from?
Being in mentorship groups and masterminds. I'm in a number of those. I'm probably in too many. I mean, I literally, my January, I left home 2 days ago. I don't get home until the 13th of January. And then I'm off to another thing on the 17th of January till the 23rd. So I'm gone 3 out of the 4 weeks in January already. But being in front of, you can't replace being in front of people. I mean, this is beautiful. You can see faces, see reactions. and actually have one-on-one discussions on a Zoom call. But you can't really see body language and anything else that may help you understand who you're speaking to or who they're hearing from. So for me, I have a lot better response being in front of people, and it's hard to create relationships over the phone. And this business that you're promoting here is a relationship business. It is, I mean, if you could have the best deal returning 30%, and you'll have some people that invest in you, but if they don't trust you and they don't have that feeling that they think you're going to do the right thing by them, they're going to kick you down the road to the next opportunity. Just my own personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I believe trust and relationships in this business is everything.
Right. Okay. So in terms of the events that you go to, there are events that specific to syndicators, like the event that I did in Dallas, for example, and there are events that attract more passive investors and some attract half and half. Have you noticed any difference in the type of events you go to of who you're attracting, like the passive investors, the amount of passive investors that you're attracting based on the different type of events that you attend?
Yeah, most real estate specific events, you're going to find passive investors there, but convincing them to follow you as opposed to following, say, Trevor or Herb or anybody else, Rick Hernandez, anybody else that I know on this call, you have to have something more trustworthy and make them feel differently than the relationship they already have with somebody else. So for me, it's going to meetups that aren't necessarily real estate related, but maybe investment related. And I think what is going to, and I don't know this for fact yet, but what I think are going to be great places to go are people that trade equities and people that trade crypto, those kind of meetup groups. I think those are going to be a golden piece, because a lot of my crypto friends that didn't follow me out of the gate, they were all a bunch of naysayers. They are now all putting $50, $100, $200,000 a deal into my deals because they want the certainty, not the volatility. Right. And I just think with real estate, we always know that prices go up. Yeah, they come back down a little bit, but most of the time they go up.
Right. Yeah, that's good. All right. So other than events, what's another really good place that you experience to attract passive investors?
You guys ready? Mailers in the mail to accredit. There's people out there that sell lists of accredited investors, or you don't know that they're accredited investors, and maybe they don't even know they're accredited investors, but there's zip codes in areas where you're at where their housing prices tend to seem to be higher. So if you mail to them on a regular basis, they will start to ring your phone, and then you can have one-on-one coffees and meetups. And those are starting to turn into real viable opportunities, and they're not already in this space. So they're not going to be delusioned when I tell them I can get you a 6% cash on cash return or a 5%, where I pitch the people that do my family office. They go, I sent them a deal, and they go, the returns aren't high enough. We're seeing deals paying 15, 20% cash on cash. And I straight up told my advisor, I go, I could lie to you and change that on the document and say, I'm going to pay a 15% return. But when I don't, they'll never invest in me again. I'd rather tell you the truth. And I go, how many of those are actually paying out?
That's a good point.
He's like, well, none. They're all brand new deals that we're just now promoting. And I go, well, in this interest rate and uncertain environment we're in, I would be cautious of anybody promising you more in a double-digit return at this point in time, at least on the cash on cash, maybe on the IRR in 3 to 5 years when we see some change out there in the interest rate environment. But as of today, I would be a little skeptical of those. And they were like, really? And I go, you're the advisor. I go, maybe you know more than I do, but I go, there's funds out there that promise X, Y, and Z, and unless they're continuing to pay that out today in today's environment, I would be a little cautious.
That's really good. And to add on to what you just said about buying a list of accredited investors, I recently heard a really good tip from Newbie, who's going to be on one of our shows here in February. But the tip is this: so you buy an accredited investors list, and you sync it with your LinkedIn through, they call it LinkedIn contact sync. And it allows you to pull out basically it finds their LinkedIn profile, and then you can connect with those people on LinkedIn. So yeah, you hit them with direct mail, you hit them with the LinkedIn contact sync. I was like, that was such a brilliant. After I heard that tip was when I reached out to him. I was like, dude, you gotta get on my show. So yeah, that's a really good point. All right, cool. What are some of the the tools that you use in your business?
One of the best tools to have is your cell phone. And you may see what I have up here, but it's a list of things we shared together. I do a lot of video texting and a marketing advisor of mine said, create one video and just send it out to everybody on your list. I create videos and I'd be like, Tim, hey, it's Mike. I know you were interested in the deal we're doing today. And it's a 10% cash on cash with a 25% IRR. It's right down in Houston, about 5 blocks from your house. I know you want to invest with me. The links are right below here on my text. If you want to talk about it, just hit talk and respond. I'll give you a call. If not, just hit the link and go ahead and fill out your documentation. Most people will hit the link and fill out the documentation. It saves a ton of time with a lot of phone calls. But if somebody wants a call, I also am accepting the call. And I tell them, if you want to talk, just reply talk, and I will call you immediately and we'll have a conversation. But one-way communication, video, using the person's name and maybe even remembering something about them from your last conversation or your last interaction really goes a long way to showing them that you're not just there for their money. You're there because you want to help them and you care about them. If you remember their kid's name, or you remember they were having a soccer game, or they were watching the World Cup and their Argentina won and everybody was happy. You got to personalize it to the person you're talking to. That way they know when you're talking to them, you're actually listening. And that's such a lost art, is so many people are out there and they don't listen to what you have to say. They're so worried about what they're thinking they're going to say next, instead of actually taking in the information. If you take an extra minute with somebody, that will solidify that relationship so much more than anything else you could possibly be doing. And it's always good to follow up after you have a one-on-one meeting with a text and just say, hey, very nice to meet you at the 10 My Capital Raising Summit. I hope you got back home to Visalia, California, and that things are going well. If there's anything I can do to add value to what you're doing, reach out. And I mean, I didn't attend your event looking for more investors. So many of my friends that raise capital, they're like, you're not going to find investors there. And I'm like, I'm not going for investors because everybody there wants to do what we're doing. But you don't know what nugget the person sitting next to you at the table that you're networking with is going to share with you that you can use on your next capital raise. And one thing I wanted to do, just if you don't mind, for just say, if anybody wants, and this is just for people that are here live today, if you want a one-on-one with me for 15 minutes for free on your next capital raise to help with your pitch, your one pager, anything, put your name, number, and email in the chat, and my steps in the chat, my assistant's on here putting my information on. Reach out. I'm happy to help free of charge. It's part of what I want to do to add value to everybody, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to add value to our clients, which are our investors. And if I can help you in any way, this is what we're here for.
That's awesome. And I love, well, first, thank you so much for that generous offer. I love it. You guys make sure you put in your contact info there. And you probably have a strategy behind how you save people's contact info on your phone, or any of that allows you to more quickly know, okay, I met them there, like this is something unique about them? Do you have a way of capturing that so that way you remember?
I try to send myself a text and then I send it to my assistant who puts it in our CRM. So that we can remember. There's no way I can remember everybody's name, but if we have a conversation, I can take a note, send it on, and that way I will, when I go back to contact them or they reach out and contact me, it'll pop up in the notes in my my phone what contact info, where we met, a little bit about what we discussed and what they were looking for. That way I can actually work that out with people. It's so valuable. Nobody wants to know anything about what you do until they know how much you care about what they do. And we all thinking about ourselves. And I think we have to think first of our tenants. Secondly, we need to think about our investors. And if we take care of those two, the third part of that puzzle is us, and we'll be taken care of on the back end. And this is a long game. This is not a sprint. We have to know that there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be some hard times coming, and we all have to be prepared for that.
Right. That's awesome. So now, whenever you're doing the webinars, are you typically the one that's presenting the webinars, or does the lead sponsor on your team that normally do that? Or it depends?
Normally, well, it depends. Most of the time, I don't do them by myself. I do it with the team. So then my investors see me on the panel with the team, and they get to hear all of us presenting, because everybody talks to everybody differently. There's some people that go to the engineering mind, and then there's the other 70% of us that go to the emotional mind. And most people make decisions based on emotion, and they execute based on facts. So if you can connect with both the engineering with a little bit of data and the emotional with the promise of a projection, you're going to close a lot more people than you're going to if you're just focused on one. And I see so many teams. This is sort of interesting. There's a number of teams I've watched, and they hang out with their friends, and they're all engineers, and then they call people like me when they're down to 2 weeks, 3 weeks left, going, we haven't been able to raise any money. Well, they're talking to a third of the people out there have an engineering mind, and 2/3 have an emotional mind, and they're not capturing anybody on the emotional side. They're capturing only on the engineering side. So you have to have multiple people on your team that are good at what they do, and they want to work with you. And it's always better if you like the person you're working with.
Right. That's awesome. I love that. In terms of the message, like you said, your strength is probably talking to the emotional mind. Is that correct?
I can do a little bit of both, but I prefer the emotional mind.
Is there any share with us some of your your tips that you maybe don't even think to share, of what you say to those type of people, or what are some of the few bullet points that you want to make sure you mentioned on the webinar to that type of audience?
You want the emotional person to feel they're secure. They want to feel secure, and that you are purporting certainty in what you're doing. If you have any lack of confidence in the product you're putting in front of them, it doesn't matter what you say, because if you don't say it with confidence or security, they're buying you. The product is secondary. So you have to be secure in what you're doing and love the product. That number one. Number two, you really, and I think we spoke about this a couple of days ago, you really got to know the problem you're solving for that person when you have that person on the phone. And you have to be very specific on how you're going to solve that for them, i.e. the W-2 person that doesn't have time to go out and do this kind of activity, but they would like to park their money with you for a short period of time so that you can take it to the new level that they're not getting in the 401k. And I think we're all going to figure out, or people are starting to figure out, that the 401k route with their business is nothing more than a savings account, and it's making about the same as what savings accounts used to. So it's a great way to put money away tax-free, But on the other end, it's only if it's only making you 5% and there's 4% of fees, at the end of the day, you're making the same as having a bank account. So it's similar. And I think people are starting to figure that out, because I've noticed this with investors that are cashing out of their 401ks completely and going all cash into deals, or moving them into a SEP IRA where they and just doing some, or a self-directed IRA, and doing funding as a limited partner to deals where they have control over their money, so they can actually help move it forward, because they're getting sold a book of goods with all the fees that are in those things. So I try to create some certainty around, back to your question, certainty around what we're presenting, what we're selling, and that I always like to share with them, they want to know how much skin you have in the game. And I don't want to play with anybody else's money without mine being at stake. And so I always put in a good chunk of money, and on every deal that I represent, that way they know that I'm playing with more money than they have in. And that's happened in 11 out of the 12 deals that I've done. The last one that I did, that we raised $1.5 million over like 5 phone calls, I had to get in, and there was only room for 100 grand. So I only got to put 100 in, where I typically would put in 400 to 500 on every one of my own deals. And I'm in a different position than most people, because I've had an ATM company that's run for 27 years and have that cash that it's been sitting on the sideline depreciating in value. So I have that opportunity to put more into deals, and that's why I do it, because I want people knowing I'm in as much or more than you are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, whenever I see that a syndicator does that, they gain a ton of trust, because people clearly see you have skin in the game. Yeah, that helps a lot. I know you shared with me one story about, I guess, one of your friends says, well, how much are you investing in? And you says 500 grand. And he's like, oh, well, I'm in it for 500 grand too. Right. So yeah, having
that was on our deal. Yeah, that was on deal number 1, and he's
wow.
in deal one through like 5 at 500 on every whack. And there's a couple other friends that are similar to that. And one person just on this very last deal, she came in and she goes, I really have a problem. She goes, can I put in and on this last deal, she put in $1 million.
Nice.
And I was not expecting that. And that's when I knew my job was done.
Right. That's awesome. All right. I know you partner with operators, Coach GP on deals. What do you look for in an operator for you to Coach GP with them?
I want to know them. I want to get to know them. We have to date a little bit first. And what's interesting, I met a couple people at your training, right, and we've been corresponding back and forth via email and phone calls, and we've had some meetings, and they're doing it the right way. Where on some of the other people that I meet here, they get on their first call, they sign up on my calendar, we jump on a call, and the first thing they want to do is tell me how great their deal is and why I should work with them. And I don't know them, and I haven't gotten a chance to get to know them. So then how am I going to turn my data, my investors over, my trust of their money over to somebody I don't know? And if I do that, I better have a majority position so I can control the deal. Because if something goes wrong, I'm responsible to them, because they put me in charge of being a good steward of the money that they're giving me. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing by them. So I like to date before I jump in bed. It's just me, and that might not be the right words, but those are the first ones that came to my mind. But so I want to get to know somebody. I want to have a feel for what they do, what they can bring to the table, how they handle themselves, how they operate as a professional.
Right. So do you have any kind of like length of time or amount of time that you talk to them before you feel comfortable enough? Any general rule of thumb?
How long does it take to get married? I mean, some people get married after knowing each other for a week. Right. Some people, you know what I mean? I mean, you could be with somebody and you show up on a like Thursday, we showed up for your show. And by Sunday, there's some people that I really liked there, but right, you know, we could all be on a honeymoon for 4 days. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have to sort of take your time. I think if you get married too quickly, there's a lot of unhealthiness there.
Mhm.
And so I want to make sure I know, like, and trust people, and I can't like them and trust them till I know them. And that's why the funnel starts with know. You have to get to know each other. That way
Right.
we know how we're going to operate. I mean, you could think I'm the nicest guy and raise the money, and then I could be the biggest jerk to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want that. I don't want that. So let's figure out if our personalities are in alignment. Are we in alignment? Do we have similar goals? Are we both trying to constantly improve our lives and the lives of others? I mean, everybody's got to have their own criteria.
That's awesome. You mentioned start with no. Literally, a friend of mine or somebody I saw on Facebook posted that book. Are you referring to that book at all? There's an actual book that says the title is Start with No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but it's about negotiating. And yeah, but yeah. Anyways, so I know you've been in real estate for a long time. However, with you being in syndication for a short period of time, are you getting questions about what this upcoming market's gonna be like, and how are you and your investors going to navigate that at all from your investors?
So I have some mentors that I follow and listen to. I mean, like Bobby Castro, he's a billionaire, and I can reach out to him and talk to him at any time. What is he doing in this market? I'm not friends with, but I have friends that were just at the Grant Cardone event. And what's he doing? What's his plan for the next 12 months? And then Charlie Young in Texas with Madera Residential, who has 18,000 doors. What's he doing?
Wow.
I reach out to those people, and I talk to people that were at these events. What are the professionals saying they're doing? Where are they going? What's Ed Milet investing in? Where are these other big real estate people that made tons of money in real estate? What are they doing, and what's their plan? And what I've heard, and I had to look it up this morning, it was Baron Rothschild said it. When there's blood in the streets, you buy. And what's the second part of that saying? Even if it's your own.
That
When
one's
there's
a
blood
tough
in
one
the
to
street,
get.
when there's blood in the streets, you buy, even if it's your own blood.
Yeah, I
I mean, I
went
was
through
in the
the
hot.
yeah I
Go
went
ahead.
through the 2008 market crash, and my blood was in the street, and I did not even. And I mean, I was so busy putting out fires, I didn't even think to go and buy at that time. But that's a really
And
good.
what would have happened if you bought?
Exactly, right. Yeah, no, that's a super good point for sure. I like that. Follow what other successful mentors of you do to navigate this market. That's a yeah.
Mhm.
Um, do you have a goal? What's your big goal around raising capital, or amount of asset under management that you want to have, or any of that stuff?
My goal is just to make enough to replace my current income from my ATM company, so that I can continue to give away money and help people. Nothing turns me on more than being able to gift. And it was funny, the same gentleman I was talking to earlier today, we were talking about giving, because he's a Christian friend of mine, and he's like, why do you like to give and nobody knows who you are? And I was like, Nick, it's not about me, it's about the receiver. And literally for the last 2 weeks, and I shared this with him, on every tab that I've had, either at a bar, a lunch place, breakfast place, or dinner place, I've tipped them a minimum of $100
Hmm.
on the meal. And you walk away from the table before they pick up the check, and I don't need the thank yous. They're there serving us. And at some point in my life, I've been able to serve others. And at this special time of year, it's way, in my opinion, for me, it's better to give back than to take. And there's so many out there that have a lot less. And I've been fortunate to work really hard and have a little bit more. So for me, I want to give. And that's why it's Christmas. And that's why I'm giving my offer of 15 minutes to help anybody with their pitch, their design, anything like that. coming up. So it's a free one-on-one with me. I don't have a coaching program. Me and Tim didn't even discuss it, but he knows I don't have any programs, no educational, I have nothing to sell. So, but if you need any help on anything, I'm here. I am not here to raise your money. I'm here to help you with your thing, but not do it for you.
Right. No, that's really good. So I mean, we'll just lead right into, if the listeners wants to reach out to you, connect with you, partner with you, where would you like to send them? And keep in mind, there's people that's going to be listening past this call on a podcast, audio only. So, yes.
So you can reach out to me directly at cypressadvantageproperties.com. That's CYPRESSADVANTAGE properties, PROPERTIES.com. My cell phone is 509-270-6701. Run, shoot me a text before you call, because if I don't know who you are, I probably won't answer. And my email is mike@cypressadvantage.com, spelled the same way, but without the properties.
That's awesome. So Mike, if you, I mean, you've only been doing this for such a short time, but maybe even going back to your real estate business, if you can redo it all over again, anything you would do differently to, expedite your growth?
Oh God, that's a great question. And I'm so glad you asked that, because I had to fire my accountant because we've been asking for years how we could save on taxes. And once we found multifamily, it's completely eliminated my federal tax consequence, which is over had been over $500,000 a year. And so that's like having a whole nother job. But what I would go bigger, faster, instead of doing smaller deals, knowing the firepower that I've gained over time, I would go bigger, faster on more stable, newer assets. But there's assets out there that everybody needs a place to live. So it doesn't really matter, but I wanted to grow faster. Why? Because then I could help more people. Robert Kiyosaki said, if you own one rental, you're selfish. You're only taking care of one person, because you know what I mean? And he makes a good point. I'd rather own multiple. And I was that guy. I owned one duplex. I had 2 doors. So, and I owned a number of those, but over time, but I wanted to help more people. And at the end of the day, it's not about what we keep. It's not about what we keep. It's about what we can give back. And for me, giving back is, I have one daughter and I can't leave her what we've done. I'd ruin her. So I want to be able to give back to as many as I can. That's
awesome. What does go bigger, faster means for you in 2023?
I'm working with a team right now. We're chasing $50-60 million Class A assets, as opposed to the $25 to $30 million ones that we did most of the last year.
Wow, that is bigger, faster. That's awesome.
Right. Well, it's a more significant raise, but it's also a higher asset class, and it allows you to grow a little faster, I believe.
Right. That's amazing. All right, so we're going to be wrapping up this part of our interview today. Any last words of wisdom you'd like to leave us all with today?
If you don't know the value of your investor, you don't know what you want to spend to be in front of them. So get to know your investor, get to know what the value is of them. And you and I had the conversation, and I'm going to try and explain it so that people understand. But as a general partner, when you get paid on the back end of a deal, when you sell, there's a value. And if you take the number of investors you have in that deal and divide that into what you're projected to make, that's the value that investor brings to you. Yes, they'll bring you $50, $100, $200,000 for the deal, but you don't get $50, $100, $200,000 per investor. So know the value of the investor, and then invest that kind of time to bring that value to them, because they're bringing that value to you.
I like that. That's awesome.